I thought to myself, what I can do to make things easier for this family is to bury this.
Oh.
And I'll just be the kid who gets good grades.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to rustle the waters. I'm just going to be a good boy.
Right. To make it easier for dad
my dad.
Yeah.
And my sisters, wouldn't have cared. But
right.
I'm not going to throw this bomb on my dad.
Wow.
And I'm not going to I am not prepared to be out at 13.
Right.
And that took a long time for me to come to terms with that.
Right. I'm Casey Main, author, writer, and party girl turned spiritual junkie, and I'm dedicated to helping you better understand the most important and most complicated relationship you'll ever be in, the one you have with yourself. It's the only relationship that you're in for the entirety of your time here, and it affects every single aspect of your life. Yet it is the one most often overlooked. This podcast is here to help you explore that relationship, get to know yourself so you can accept yourself, heal yourself, and become a better version of yourself. So let's get to it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Better You Podcast. I am your host, Casey Main. As always, thank you so much for being here, whether you are new or you follow along often. I really appreciate it. If you've been following the podcast for a while, then you are probably just as surprised as I was to see that our number one in our best of series, so the most popular show of the podcast so far, is actually the very first episode of the podcast, which personally I couldn't be more pleased about. I just love this guest. Him and I are friends from way back, like young kids. And when I had the idea to do the podcast, I was like, okay, I want to talk to experts. I also want to talk to real people with just real life stories. And I don't know why he came to mind. He literally lives on the other side of the country. I'm in Florida and he's in San Francisco. And to be honest, we haven't even really kept in great touch over the years, but I would see through social media just how well he's doing and how happy he is. And I knew he had a really, I don't want to say incredible because parts of it are sad, but just a really real story of some of the struggles that we go through. And if you've been following my work for a while, or if you read my book, you know that I am a big believer that we are all essentially going through the same deep-rooted struggles. They're wrapped in different circumstances, but at the core, it all comes down to that acceptance of self and worrying about what other people think and fear of going after what you really want and getting stuck in these negative patterns of relationships. We all have such similar stories once you start to kind of peel back the layers of the specific circumstances. And so Graham came to mind as somebody with just a very heart-wrenching story, yet someone who was doing so well now. And so I knew he would have a lot of insight into kind of how he navigated that. And I realize you could maybe argue that because it was the first episode and that we both went to school together for so long, so between the two of us, everybody we know probably listened to it. But that is not why it is the most downloaded episode, because it gets new downloads to this day. I looked into some of the data and it just consistently gets new downloads. And it goes to show you how powerful his story is and how inspiring his message is. And I'm very excited to reshare it. I will also announce that Graham has actually started his own podcast. So when you fall in love with him just listening to his amazing personality in this conversation and you want more, don't worry. You can now find it in the Let Me Introduce You podcast. So it's a fun podcast. So I realize the stuff we cover here is kind of deep and gets you thinking and digging into your life. Well, Graham's podcast is just a turn it on and laugh and have a good time. So what he's done is he joined up with two of his friends back from film school, and they've all known each other for like 20 years at this point in time and have stayed really close friends, and like close friends to the point where they know everything about each other and like have a bunch in common, but they all have very different tastes in movies, and they were all in film school, so they're all like movie people. So what they do is like each week one of them has to introduce the others to their favorite movie, one of their favorite movies that at least one of the other people hasn't seen. And so then they kind of go through it and they discuss the plot, and it's so fun because they all have like these great personalities and the way it all mixes together. But it's also really interesting because they drop all this just kind of like movie knowledge, which if you didn't go to film school, like I didn't, you don't necessarily analyze movies that way. So it's just a really fun one. Definitely go check it out. I'll link to it in the show notes. And it's a way for you to spend even more time with Graham and really kind of hear how he's doing now after hearing his story in this show, which is really more looking back to the past, which was not an easy road for him, as it wasn't for a lot of us. And then a couple previous episodes that I recommend that kind of fall in line with some of today's themes. Episode 70, Balancing Taking Care of Yourself and Being There for Others with Asha Terry. This one, you'll kind of immediately see the tie to today's show with Graham, where he really kind of chose to put others ahead of himself. And so in episode 70, Asha gives a lot of advice on kind of how to balance that. Like, how do you set boundaries around yourself and your time, yet also be there for others? And then also episode 48, which is one of my personal favorites because this guest is like my podcast idol, Embracing the Real Rebel Within You with Katie Buman. She is just such an inspiration of embracing the real rebel within you, which essentially is being yourself, like being true to who you are and like who you are here to be. And that's definitely a theme in Graham's story. And then also because we talk about, we both went to a Catholic school. So we went to a Catholic grade school and then fed into a Catholic high school, and just kind of the implications of that in terms of his story. If you are open-minded when it comes to all things religion, then you'll probably be really interested in episode 44, Death, God, Religion, and Mysticism with Reverend Peter Panagore. He has a super interesting story because he has had not one, but two near-death experiences. So he has like been to the other side and shares that story. Okay, as far as what's coming up on the podcast, my plan, so this is where like there's my plan and then we'll see what actually happens. My plan was to do a solo episode next week where I'll share kind of life lessons or biggest takeaways before we go into a new year. But I'm going to be really honest with you guys. As I sit here and record this intro, my sister and her family, so my two little nephews and little niece, just got in town late last night. So as soon as I finish this, I'm heading over to my parents to hang out with them. And I really want to spend as much time with them as possible. So we'll see if I'm able to kind of put together these life lessons. If not, I'm not sure what next week's episode will be. So we'll just kind of leave it a mystery at this point in time. And then to give you a glimpse of what we've got coming up in January, as I've mentioned in past shows, I'm going to be much more intentional about the topics we choose in the podcast in the new year and make sure that we're covering all the different facets of our relationship with ourselves. So we're going to start off with kind of more of a mind psychological one. We have Lee Ranikin, who is the one of the guys who does the Optimal Living Daily podcast. So he pretty much reads personal development blogs, not pretty much, he literally does read personal development blogs every day to pick the ones that they then read and feature on the show. We had him on last year, and so I've got him coming back. He's our first repeat guest, if you don't count these reruns. And he picked out 5 different blogs or articles that have really relevant and important themes to them. And so we discuss those. And I'm telling you guys, this is like, if you're listening and you're like, I don't want to like hear all this, like, New Year stuff. But these are just, they just have this like overall theme of just like permission, like just permission to like be yourself and do what works for you rather than like all the pressure and noise and expectation we can put on ourselves for like, oh, like a new year, a new you, and do all this stuff. And our conversation takes a much different approach to a mindset for the new year. And then in January, we're also going to have an episode on sex. We're going to have an episode on spirituality, just to show you guys kind of the whole, we're going like the whole gamut. And then we're going to hear from a woman who has this really incredible story of going from growing up as like a silent, submissive, obedient, reformed Mennonite woman to becoming a pilot in the Air Force. And so that gives you guys a little bit of a glimpse of how we're going to approach each month. Like I want to do a mind, a body. A lot of times that body episode will be about sex because I find it fascinating. I think it is a really important topic that doesn't always get covered in the way I like to look at it. Like I like to look at it more from like a psychological, sexual component, and then spirituality, and then really interesting stories. So that is the plan for the new year. Okay, so I don't really have like an official bio for Graham. I thought about asking him for one, but then I didn't. So I'm just going to say like Graham and I have been friends since childhood, and he now lives out in San Francisco, and he's amazing. One of the hosts of the Let Me Introduce You podcast, and his story is a perfect example of our human nature to care deeply for others, our willingness to put ourselves aside for others, and then our resilience and how we can find our way back to ourselves and really settle into and be happy with who we are. So that's the bio that I've just written for Graham. Okay, in this episode, we discuss how our selflessness can be such a noble thing, yet it can have some serious consequences for our relationships with ourselves and others. How oftentimes we must process and accept things internally before we are ready to share them with the people in our lives. How you truly never know what someone else is going through. The awareness in relationships to stop and consider if you want to be in those relationships versus focusing on the other person and what they want or how they feel. And then how everything we go through in life serves a purpose. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Graham. Okay, so welcome, Graham.
Hi, Casey.
I'm excited that you're here.
I'm excited you're in San Francisco.
I know.
Yeah.
I've never been here before. It's very fun. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in because I hate when podcasts just chat a lot in the beginning because I don't have a huge attention span. So why don't we start with just go ahead and kind of tell everybody a little bit of like who you are, what you do, and just very brief cliff notes of like what your life looks like now.
Sure. So I live here in San Francisco. I moved here in 2015. Basically after Jacksonville, I lived in Boston, then New York City, then Boston. And then I decided I am done with winters.
Ooh,
and I am done with harsh New England people.
Yeah.
So I kind of made the jump and moved out here. And so I've been here about 4 years. I work in higher education down at Stanford. And my life out here is pretty great, I would say. Like the West Coast definitely appeals to me. It's just very different from the East Coast.
Yes. So I've only been here a day, so I haven't really experienced it. Other than the weather, I've learned that there isn't really like a summer here, which I find interesting.
We have a summer in like October and September.
Okay. Oh,
our summers here are actually quite foggy.
Yeah.
I think people move here in the summer and they're like, wait.
Yeah.
Why
like people were walking around in coats today, and it felt like 105 in Jacksonville.
Exactly. And like, I mean, I have like a jacket with me right now, that old like 30 Rock joke about like, oh, I enjoy like living with like bringing a light jacket with you wherever you go.
Yeah.
Like that is San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, I've packed like a Florida girl, so I'm just
okay. You'll be doing some shopping.
But yeah, in terms of the people, like how is it different here than on like the East Coast?
I think in my experience, people here are, definitely that more laid back California vibe. I think my experience, especially in New England and Boston and New York, everybody's very go, 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 and not necessarily people make the time for you. Where feel like here people make an effort to kind of branch out, make new friends.
Yeah.
There are cliques, as there are with any city, but
Yeah.
I feel like in San Francisco, the cliques actually like kind of mingle with each other.
Okay.
And there's this, people are more naturally kind.
Okay.
That's per my experience.
Yeah. What about like work-life balance? Because I know the East Coast can be very work-centric.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, it could be laid back out here, but then you also have, this is like the birthplace of some like major companies.
Right,
so
right.
how does that play out?
My job before I moved out here, I was working at another higher ed institution, and I was required to wear like a tie, a button-down shirt, slacks. Like I needed to look good every single day, and I needed to be there at 8 o'clock and work late. I arrived to my first day here wearing a shirt and tie, and my boss said, "Oh, honey, you don't have to do that here."
Why y'all fancy?
Like you can wear jeans, and there's this really nice work-life balance of, like, if I'm there at 5:05, my boss is like, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
Which is just like mind-boggling
Yeah.
to me because I like, especially Northeast, like you're always constantly working.
Oh yeah.
So that's a nice change.
Yeah.
I think my field definitely allows me to do that. I know people who work in tech work crazy hours, but I'm luckily not one of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Okay. So as you know, this podcast is really focused on helping us all have a better relationship with ourselves by kind of understanding ourselves. And I believe very much in the power and insight that can come from hearing other people's stories. So today we're all going to hopefully gain insight from your story. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with kind of the moment in time, or the time in your life where you felt like maybe your relationship with yourself was at its worst, or you're just kind of the most disconnected from yourself. Then we'll kind of travel back in time and like what led up to that, and then what did you do moving forward?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point do you feel like you and yourself were not in such a good place, and like what did that look like? Were you aware of it? Like, how were you feeling?
So when you posed this question to me, I've been doing a lot of reflecting on very intense parts of my life. And I think I'm jumping to kind of like the biggest event of my whole life, which is when I was 13 and my mother passed away from cancer. And that period of time has definitely like defined how I like look at my life and look at my choices, and the decisions I make are really based on this long period of my adolescence up until my 20s of just being completely at a loss of like how to function as a person.
Right.
And that came in like my relationships with people, my relationships with myself, and how to really connect with others, and also just coming to terms with another portion of my life that kind of happened around that time, which is when I realized that I was gay. So these two very big things were happening at the same time, and me trying to balance that. And it took a very long time for me to kind of figure that out. Okay.
So when your mother passed away, cancer. So, and we knew each other then.
Yeah.
I remember when it happened, but I don't remember all the details. Did you know it was coming? Cause like, was it kind of a lead up to it?
So it was, the horrible thing about cancer in family is that for some people, it just goes on and on and on. And for my mother, it was about a 2-year up and down process. It came, she had breast cancer, she had a double mastectomy, and we thought, great, it's gone. It came back. It went away. It came back and then spread everywhere, basically.
Geez. Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't know if you know about this, but my father also had cancer.
No, I don't think I did know that.
So they both had cancer at the same time.
What kind did he have?
He had lung cancer.
Oh my gosh.
So I think there was like a point in 6th grade where they both went into these like life or death surgeries on the same day.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like my father was given like a 6-month life sentence. My mother was going to be fine. And then it just kind of like swapped.
Switched.
Basically.
Wow.
So the kind of like the lead up to her passing she was fine, And then it came back in full force where she was like completely bedridden. And then we finished up our like 7th grade year. So this is 97. And I remember just knowing that there was like, this is different. This time it's very different with her because she's bedridden. Doctors are making house calls. Something's more serious this time. And I remember there was, I'm going to probably get into a lot with you on this. I remember there was this date. It was June 6th, where doctors came to our house, and all of us were there, and they brought us into the room, and they're basically giving us like a status update of her. And doctors were giving us like doctor talk. Like,
right.
We were like 13. My sisters were 18 and 15.
Yeah.
So they were giving us these words that, like, I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
So they were just babbling on, and then they said, do you have any questions? And I remember saying, yeah, is my mother going to die? Just like, I don't know what came over me in that moment. I was just like, you need to tell me what's going on. And he said, she's got about a year. She got about a year or two. And I remember what made that conversation was very significant, but what was significant about it was what happened immediately after, which was my mother's reaction to that news for her kids hearing it. Wasn't to show like her fear, but to comfort us.
Oh, gosh.
You know what I mean?
Mothers, they're
like,
just incredible. Yeah.
She was like, being in a room and having a doctor inform your kids of this, and for your instinct to turn and go, I've got a year with you. Let's make this count. Let's make this amazing. We'll have a great Christmas. We'll have a great Thanksgiving. Like, we'll be there for all of these wonderful things. And so that was so crazy to me to think that when you're met with like something like that,
right,
like as a parent, that amount of strength to really show your kids was incredible.
Were you able to, in your 13-year-old mindset, make that switch that she wanted you to make, like kind of from, okay, I just got this horrific news, but okay, you're right, Mom, let's make it a great year? Like, how did you react to that?
Part of me was like, exactly, like, okay, this will be great. But a part of me, one of the things she said was like, don't worry, like, I'll take you to like Blockbuster. I'll take you to, I was like, that's not what I want, Mom. Yeah. Like, I want to like have you with me at all times. And I wasn't equipped at 13 to really understand.
No.
What was going on? I went into immediate denial because, we went to a Catholic school.
Yep.
I'm like, she's a good person. This isn't going to happen.
This isn't going to happen. Yeah.
This isn't going to happen. So that was June 6th, and I say that date for a reason because, so we left that conversation thinking, okay, a year, great.
Yeah.
A year. She died the next week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that week, so she went into surgery a couple of days later. It did not go well. And then we were informed of like, this is it. You got to come and say goodbye to your mom.
Oh my God.
Basically. So that kind of promise that we were given.
Yeah.
And for that
the one piece of comfort was then just ripped out.
Taken away from us immediately. That was the last real conversation I had with her because then she went to surgery and she couldn't really speak. And so that 1 week where I can like, I mean, it's funny, like I can't remember what happened 6 months ago. I can't remember what happened like 3 years ago. But that 1 week, I can remember where I was at every single moment.
Wow.
And that 1 week like haunted me for a very, very long time because I was a mama's boy. Like, I think that was pretty evident from when anybody who knew me.
I'm not saying a word.
Right. I was definitely mama's boy, and so she was like my best friend.
Yeah.
And I think she was adored in our community. And like to have that ripped away was kind of insane to happen so quickly, and then to go from being a family to being completely fractured.
Yeah.
Which is just...
Were you able, like, did you kind of lean on your sisters during this time frame, on your dad, on friends, or did you more kind of like kind of retreat into yourself and try and deal with it yourself?
I completely retreated. I would say we all react in our own ways to like how this goes on, and I think with my family, we all just didn't know what to do. I think my sisters and I we're now like lost our mom. My father was now a widower.
Yeah, and
there was all this like activity at the beginning where people are coming over, they're taking care of you, they're giving you meals. No one's there a couple months later.
Yeah.
When
it settles back into normal life. Yeah.
Settles back in, where you're having that first holiday season without your mom, your first birthday. So I think for my sisters, my oldest sister, she was in college. She got to like go back to college.
Right. Escape, essentially. Yep.
My other sister had this very tight-knit yet rebellious group of friends. So she had that. And my father, I think, had a lot of sympathy in our community because he's a dad and he had 3 kids. And I think he had a really big support system. I didn't have that. I was virtually left pretty alone. And that's almost by my own accord. I didn't have a lot of close friends at our middle school. And I think, one, I craved people to like reach out to me, but like that whole summer went by, no one called me.
Oh God, right? No, I feel horrible.
Okay, no. But it's like, we were 13,
right?
It's like, it's all hindsight.
That is, and that's just such a like. Not that there's any good time to lose your mother, but like of all ages, like that age is super impressionable, and yet you're also like your priorities are all mixed up because you're getting into teenage years and you're trying to like kind of find yourself, and so it's just that's a lot of moving parts.
So kind of how I reacted was because at the same time, this is like the time I figured out that I was gay too.
Was that happening like at the same time, and then you're kind of just like, all right, I'm not going to deal with this right now because I've got all this going on with your mom, or were you trying to kind of juggle both of those things?
Yeah, I figured it out like 3 months before she passed. This was 1997, and like Ellen was coming out. Like, it was all this stuff, and I was like, and we went to a Catholic school. So I was like, well, I can't talk to anybody about this because of just the nature of the country, the nature of the time period.
And the nature of Jacksonville, Florida, even within the country.
And our classmates, So I thought to myself, what I can do to make things easier for this family is to bury this. Oh. And I'll just be the kid who gets good grades. And I'm not going to rustle the waters. I'm just going to like be a good boy. Right.
To make it easier for dad
my dad. Yeah. And my sisters, wouldn't have cared. But like, I'm not going to throw this bomb on my dad.
Wow.
And I'm not going to I am not prepared to be out at 13.
Right.
And that took a long time for me to come to terms with that.
Right. But then how much did that kind of, did that kind of like sit in the back of your mind and kind of always kind of be a little bit top of mind, or were you able to really kind of put it aside and just like tunnel vision on grades?
I wish I was able to split that. When you meaning, hypothetically you find out that you're gay, it's all you think about.
Yeah.
I was just like craving like content, craving like stuff to like fully understand.
Right, because you just figured out a part of your identity, and then now instead, that's so interesting because it's like at the same time you lost a part of your identity, which is your mother, which for all of us, our parents, especially at that age, are definitely still a big part of who we are, and then you discover this other part. One part's ripped away from you suddenly, and then this other part you like willingly decide to just kind of shelve. Yeah. So I bet you were feeling a little disconnected from yourself.
And I think this is all going on with my family, and then there's so much help out there for straight people to figure themselves out. like you have plenty of movies and plenty of books about relationships and plenty of everything.
Yeah.
In the late 90s and early aughts, there was not that much.
Yeah.
There's no one helping you through it.
Yeah.
Because
no one was talking about it. And that's such an interesting point, because I've even thought about that just from like the heterosexual standpoint, and kind of, my identity of like, what is the role that a woman plays in a relationship, and what is it that we're looking for, and how much we've all kind of been programmed by like movies and just everything growing up, that there's this Prince Charming and he comes and he rescues you, and so like you had no programming, which is like a good thing but also a bad thing, because there's no guidance.
Like the programming was, like gay men are predators, like they're serial killers, like Silence of the Lambs, like movie Copycat and all this, or like it's all about sex. And it's like, well, a portion of it is, but
a portion of every relationship is about sex.
But it was no way for me to like say like, oh, this is actually not a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal because it's a wonderful thing to celebrate, but it's like, okay, it's relationships with people. So that burying happened for about 8 years. I kind of kept it all throughout high school.
And so all through that time, we're in Catholic school. So I don't know how much at that time I don't know how much you connected with Catholicism or how religious you were, but like, how did that play into you kind of, dealing with this realization? Like, did it add like guilt and confusion, or were you kind of disconnected from the Catholicism?
There was a lot of that Catholic guilt.
Yeah.
I remember the moment I figured it out, too, that I was gay.
What's that moment? Will you tell that story?
I will tell that story.
I just find that so fascinating.
So, I mean, I always was like, I did gymnastics, I played the flute, like whatever.
I don't think anyone was really that shocked.
So, but I remember I was staying at my grandparents' house for some reason, and they had cable TV, and I was up late at night watching a movie that starred Russell Crowe, and it was a movie where it was one of his first roles, and he played a gay man in it. The movie is called Some of Us, and it's about his relationship with his like dad, who's like this gruff guy, and I kind of was absent-mindedly watching it, and in the movie, he goes on a date with a guy. I was like, well, that's different. And at the end of the date, they're sitting on a swing, and they kiss. And I remember something happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
This is not good.
What a moment. See, that's so sad though, that's your initial reaction. Well, this is not good, because that was the time, and that was like kind of the environment, and like just that in itself, like what that kind of sets your psyche up for, like just your initial gut reaction to like figuring out a part of who you are is, this is not good.
This is not good. So for a long time, I kind of was just like, I feel such immense shame. And that...
Did you tell anyone?
Didn't tell anybody. Because this is also a time period where, like, again, I didn't have like really good connections with people, and I had nobody to talk to. So I'm just like in my thoughts, trying to like come to terms with this, but also be like, no, I'm going to marry a woman. I'm going to have kids, because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm being
So you were
taught.
still kind of fighting it on some level.
I was totally fighting it. I mean, I had crushes on girls. I did air quotes. But, but I always knew that I would just be like lying.
Yeah, but you were almost willing to accept a life of lying versus go through the difficulties of coming out as who you really are. Which really, though, we're all doing that. Like, we all do that on some level. It just maybe isn't as, like, definable as, like, sexuality. But, like, everybody is, at least from what I've seen, or at some point in time in their life, has struggled with, kind of the easy road of going along with like the norm. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I recognize maybe I'm not going to be that happy, but I'm fine with that, versus the difficult road of being who we are.
Of what makes you legitimately happy.
Yeah.
And so I think towards the end of high school, again, I hadn't talked to anybody about this. I was like, okay, I'm going to become gay when I go to college. Like, that's it. And so I kind of just, like, suffered through high school. Because as a Catholic school, we had religion classes that talked about homosexuality.
You know what's funny? I cannot remember a single thing from religion class. Like, I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention, but...
Yeah.
Like,
I remember the lectures about sexuality.
I bet you remember those, yeah.
God, there was a junior year of high school. We were in I forgot her name, but she was a nun, one of the teachers, and we were all broken up into groups, and we had to do a project on a topic that was like controversial, and she assigned the groups. And she's going through the groups, and she goes like, this one's doing it on war, this one's doing it on like guns, this one's doing it on divorce, and she gets to my group. And what topic did they give me? Homosexuality.
Yep.
And then you hear the whole room snickering. Like,
so did people kind of guess or assume in high school that you were gay? Like, did you have to deal with almost, not necessarily bullying, or maybe there was bullying, but like kind of the rumor mill?
I was like harassed a lot in high school.
Really?
I kept it really quiet. I didn't talk to anybody about it, but I mean, I had people spreading rumors about me. I had people shouting a certain F word to me in the hallway. And like, part of me was just like so angry at them, but I was also so jealous of like straight guys at our school. Yeah. Because they could walk through the halls and not worry about their gestures, not worry about how they sound when they speak. Like, it was like this code switching that I was doing. Yeah. And it still wasn't working. Yeah. So that was like really hard, because every day I went to school, I was worried that something was going to happen. Because, I mean, we weren't, our classmates were not like the friendliest people towards it because of the time period. Right. People change. Right. It's like when I hear people talk fondly about high school, I'm like, ugh. Yeah. Like, I can't even think about those 4 years because of just like what people would talk about and say about me. And these are people that I'd never even spoken to. Right. So that you get this like idea about somebody, and it's like you're a target.
And that's such an interesting point you make, though, about how it's like you're already suffering and going through all this work to try and be quote unquote normal, so that you don't get this negative attention, and then you're getting it anyways.
Yeah. And I think, again, I was craving friendships at that time. And when you're like, I wasn't like super effeminate, but like I was just like, I was different from the rest of the guys. When you're like that and you're labeled, no guys want to become friends with you. Yeah. Because they don't want to be like, oh, you're hanging out with the gay kid. And it's just like, I had some girlfriends, but it's just like, I wanted a guy friend to talk to. Yeah. Because like, to have like connections. Yeah. I was like desperate for that. But that's why like that period even further like put me in my hole and made it really difficult for me to connect with people. Which is why I kept looking at like college as like, okay, that's going to fix all my problems. Yep. And that's why I try to get as far away from Jacksonville as possible, which got me to Boston.
So do you think, did your dad or your sisters, did anybody like try and reach out to you in a meaningful, positive, like comforting way, and you still kind of were like, nope, I'm not dealing with this yet? Or did no one even do that?
Nobody.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I was really good at hiding myself. I think when kids are in the closet, we become experts in just like not revealing certain aspects of ourselves. Like you're so worried that people are going to find out that you do everything you can to like hide. Yeah. And I was really good at it. 'Cause I think there was like, I was talking to somebody who went to our high school, and they're like, I don't think I heard you speak the entire 4 years. I'm like, yeah, I did that on purpose. So yeah, I didn't come out to my sisters until I was like 20. Okay. Which is when I came out. Okay. I mean, I still...
So that's like 2 years into college.
2 years into college.
So you get to college, what's the delay then?
I was like, I want to build genuine friendships. And I want to come out when the time is right. When I have a good, like, group of people.
Well, I'm sure you even probably needed some time to, like, mentally process it, because you hadn't really been doing that, because you've been just, like, fighting it and trying to be like, nope for so long.
Totally.
You can't just, like, then start telling everybody when you haven't even, at least that's how I operate. Like, I have to process things myself first before I'm ready to discuss them with somebody else. And it frustrates the hell out of people in my life.
Totally. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm in Boston, and Boston's a very different city from Jacksonville. And I met gay people for the first time, and I was like, what kind of gay person do I want to be? And it took me until the start of my junior year, because I was running a community service program that was involved with, like, it was basically a week before school started. We sent all these freshmen to BU. I went to Boston University. And they're divided into these different issue areas. And they learned the whole week about a specific issue area. And I was assigned to gender focus, which is about, body image, women's rights, and LGBT issues.
You're always assigned, just coincidentally.
But I picked it.
Oh, okay.
I picked it because I was like, I want to understand more about this. And I saw that week the freshmen come in, and they came in that first day of training and were immediately themselves. The kids who came out for the first time, because they felt so comfortable. And I thought to myself, why didn't I do that? And I knew I didn't do it because I wasn't ready. But at that time, I now had a group of friends that were like family to me. It was time for me to actually be my authentic self. So that's when I came out. And, when you first start doing it, it's like amazing. And you're like, yes, I am. And everyone's
I'm
like,
free.
We know.
They're like, finally, we can talk about it.
Yeah. And then when you do that, you then begin a whole nother process of just like, okay, how do I date? How do I...
Had you dated at all, even like secretly?
I think I kissed a boy when I was like 12, but that was it.
Yeah.
So I did what like not every, but a lot of people mistakenly do, is I immediately got into a relationship.
Yeah. No, that's what we all do, because that fixes everything.
Because I was like, okay, well, now I have a boyfriend, and it's great.
Yeah,
and
I don't know how to be myself, so I'm just going to latch on to someone else.
Latch onto it. And, oh, geez, like, the first relationship was, like, stupid. Like, we were 18, 19, like, dumb. We cheated on each other. It was just stupid. It was very, very toxic. And I was like, this is not what I want. But, again, no one is teaching you how to be in a gay relationship. Like, you think, okay, now that I can date, I'm supposed to be in something. I think when it took me a long time to figure this out, I kept adopting what my straight friends were doing as what I should be doing.
Which they had probably never even been taught how to be in a relationship either, because I'm telling you, like, there's a lot more movies and stuff out there. I mean, I guess there are resources, but at that age, you're not to the point where you're, reading dating books, and there weren't dating podcasts then. Like, we were all just trying to figure it out, failing miserably.
Right. But so many of my friends were straight, and they were like, they're in relationships, I should be in one too. I think for a long time, I think this was like from 20 to like 30, I kept adopting what I think, I'm this age, I should be doing this. Yep. And I like this boy, I'm going to make him like me. Like, I'm going to keep changing myself to fit what I think society wants. Oh, yeah. Which is, I think, so many of us do that.
Yes, we do.
And I'm almost like super grateful that I made those mistakes. Because, like, it just led me into like, okay, at this point in my life, I know what I want, I know what I like, I know what's good for me, and I put all that crap aside.
It's true. It's such like a cliche to say that, you learn from your mistakes, but you really do. Like, and I think that's almost by design, because, if somebody were to tell you when you're younger, like, trust me, like, this is what you're going to want, and this is what's going to make you happy, and this is what's going to be healthy for you, you're going to be like, okay. Like, you have to learn it for yourself, and usually it's learning it the hard way.
I would say a turning point for me was going to our 10-year high school reunion.
I missed that.
Did you? You didn't go to it?
No, but you guys drunk dialed me.
Oh, God. I remember going to it, So I was 28, and you have ideas of what people are doing and what their lives are like. I remember being like, wow, some of these people have 3 to 4 kids, and they've had a wildly different 20s experience than I have. And I was like living in Boston after living in New York City. I mean, I had like adventures under my belt. I had done these crazy things, and I was like, I wouldn't trade any of that for anything.
See, I would have had a different. At that time, I was in a relationship with a married man, so I was not in a good space, and probably would have looked at everyone and been like, "Fuck, I did this wrong. Right. I have done this wrong."
Okay, yeah.
Because I had not gotten to a point of making peace with. I was still learning the hard lessons for sure.
But at that time, like, to like be the kid from high school that was like picked on, and to come in and like look the way I look.
Like, I'm a gorgeous gay man now. Who are you?
They're like, who are you here with? Who are you married to? I'm like, no, I was in school with you. It was just a very validating experience. And that began like this like year of me kind of reflecting on, I had been really unhappy with like where I was as like a single guy in the city of Boston, and my relationships with men, which I thought were really toxic. And I had discovered through a lot of reflecting that I wasn't being my authentic self. I kept putting myself in positions because I felt like I had to be. I had to be in a relationship.
So how did you start to figure that out? Like, what did your reflecting look like?
A lot of it was I was with these men, and I would get upset about something that happened. I would get angry about a text that wasn't answered in time.
Oh, yeah, we all do that.
Or an awkward encounter. And then I would say, oh, like, why can't X just, like, treat me with respect? Why can't they just be a good person to me? And then I would say, but Graham, do you even like this person?
See, good for you that you asked that question. It took me way too long to ask that question.
I was like, no, I don't like this person.
Yeah.
Then it's just like, I was like, Graham, why are you wasting your time on these people who aren't right for you? They're not bad people.
Right.
They're just not your person. They're not right for you. And something, like, I tell you, when I hit 30, it just clicked.
Wow.
I was like, I'm not wasting my time anymore. Like, this is, I got to start loving myself.
Yes.
And start being, like, my genuinely happy self, because I hadn't been happy for a long time. I think if you knew me, like, 7 years ago, I would have been a wildly different person. I was very moody. I was very frustrated with my actions and frustrated with my relationships with people. And then I just came to this realization through that thinking process and through finding out what makes me happy. Like, something clicked, and I was like, oh, I became like this very happy, jovial person.
So during those years, though, I mean, like you say, like you were like moody and stuff, but were you aware that you were unhappy, or was it not until like kind of you reached 30 and then it was just like, oh man, I haven't been happy?
That was it. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, why did you put yourself through such like personal torment? Why did you punish yourself over this guy? I had a pretty toxic relationship for like a year and a half, and that ended, and I carried that anger with me for 2 years over that one person. And I'm just like, oh my God, I wasted these 2 years just filling myself with this like anger about something that I couldn't control. The universe was put me in this position to teach me a lesson.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I think that's one of the best purposes of relationships is, I mean, they're going to bubble up all your shit that you haven't dealt with. Like they're going to trigger it, and it's going to happen. And so it kind of shows you like what you have to work on. Yeah.
Cause I was such a bad communicator, cause I would just like sit and seethe and be like, why can't you read my thoughts?
Yeah.
Or like, you know,
oh yeah, we all do that.
Or like, I wouldn't tell them like what was good for us or good for our relationship. So in my relationship now, like, I'm an over communicator, because from the lessons learned from all of that, like, I've had to like learn to be more of an open book, not just relationships with like romantic relationships.
All relationships.
With people.
Well, it's true. And I think, and I had a recent conversation with somebody about this, and it's like I think we're bad communicators because we're trying to avoid the uncomfortable conversation. Because the uncomfortable conversation is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. If you get through that, it's better. If you avoid it, it's just like, it just festers and things just never work out.
And I hate, because I know I do that still.
Yeah.
I'll have like a disagreement with a friend and I'll just be so upset about it for like 2 months. And then we finally meet up. I'm like, everything's fine. Like, why, I talked about it with other people. What a waste. Like, I made this out to be something that it wasn't. And I'm still learning that lesson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So you get to this point where you're 30 and you have some major realizations in terms of like relationships and communicating. But at that point, had you kind of reflected back and dealt with your mom's death?
Yes. I think part of what happened with that is that our family became really fractured. And we all kind of became strangers to each other. And years had gone by where we were not all happy with each other. Or just like we didn't know who each other was.
Right.
So around this time, I was like, this is my family. Like we all live far apart from each other. I mean, they live in Jacksonville. I'm here. At the time I was in Boston. And I was like, this wouldn't make Mom proud. This wouldn't make her happy that we were in this state after she's been gone for so long. Because at this time, we had lived longer without her. I had lived longer without her than her. So this began this like kind of lovely reconnection with all the four of us together. A lot of it stemmed from the fact that my sisters had their daughters. 6 months away from each other.
Kids will bring families together.
I think that was like the impetus for us. Like we got to stop.
Yeah.
There's babies. There's kids. And we still have our mom. Like she's like, our mom is still being carried through in them. So it was kind of like this long road of this devastating thing that happened when I was young. And this unfortunately long period of just like anger and confusion. And
it was like a split. You had just like split from yourself.
Yeah. And then exactly. So I think people think like, oh, you'll be fine in a couple of years. But I was like, oh my God, 17 years. 17 years for me to finally feel like a family again.
Yeah.
And to feel like this unit where the four of us can be together and just like be so elated and laugh. Do we have our disagreements still? Absolutely. You know, do my father and I see eye to eye on a lot of things? No. Is he still kind of figuring out what to do with a gay son? Yes. So
that's a process for him as well.
It's a process for him.
Yep.
But it's nice that we're finally at this place.
Right.
So because it's almost like in a way of honoring her.
Yes. So have you had conversations like this with your family members where you kind of rehash what everybody went through and how everyone reacted? Or was it more of a no need to talk about this stuff, let's just kind of all come together?
I think for a long time we never talked about her. And then we started talking about her again. Like, Dad, tell us about when you proposed to her.
Oh.
Tell us about like a funny thing she did. Because we want to keep those memories alive. We can't keep harking back to that 1 week where everything was devastating.
Right.
We want to think about the happy times. Think about her laugh. Think about like what would Mom think about in this situation? Because I think we obviously would never forget her, but I mean, she was a huge part of our lives. But we have to find some way of keeping that memory alive and thinking about how we can keep those qualities both within ourselves and like my sister's kids.
Yeah.
So it's been really nice to just reconnect in that way.
Yeah.
And we always like whenever I go home to Jacksonville, we look at photos and just like look at photos of like when my parents were dating and like she was like this beautiful like 70s bell bottoms, like long gray hair. Like she was like it was just like cool to see different sides of her.
Yeah.
We came across her old diaries and read through those and just to figure out what a life she had. before even my dad was in the picture.
Yeah.
Which is really, really nice to keep that memory alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you were to kind of go back in time to kind of that time period where after your mom passes away and, there's all the people coming over and then like the dust settles and you go back to normal life, like what would you say to that like child version of you to maybe make the road ahead a little bit smoother? Or would you not say anything to him because, he had to go through what you went through?
I'm glad you said that because I don't think I would have changed anything. I think I am in a really nice place in my life because of what's happened to me and because of the situations that I've put myself into. I think I've put a lot of work into appreciating even the smallest things, be it like, a beautiful day for the weather.
Right,
or just like 3 minutes of a song that make me so elated. Like I'm trying really hard to just live in the moment. And
I think that's also getting back in touch with feelings. At least that's what it's been for me. So I think if you, if you don't deal with kind of, your mom dying at that time, and then you don't deal with the fact that you're gay at the time, you start to just like repress feelings. And I think that bleeds out into other feelings. And then before you know it, you're not even really feeling, those moments of pure like joy anymore. So to get back in touch with, you've got to get back in touch with all of it, the good and the bad.
Yeah. Such a good point. Yeah. I was just like numb.
Yes.
For so long.
Yeah.
And then I think like moving out here especially made me just become this just like incredibly optimistic, happy person. Yay. Which to a degree can like annoy people, but I mean, granted I have my hard times, but I'm like better equipped to handle them now. But like I keep thinking, I think of two things in my life decisions. One, I think, what would Graham at 80 think about this? Like, is he going to reflect on this and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that?
Yeah.
Or like, well, you're crazy. Or like, that probably wasn't the best decision. So I think about 80-year-old Graham, should I make it? My grandmother just turned 100, so hopefully I make it.
Yeah, wow.
And I also think, Mom, wherever she is, is she proud of this moment?
Yeah. I like those two perspectives.
Yeah.
What would your 80-year-old self think when they reflect back?
Yeah. Because going back to Catholicism, I don't consider myself Catholic. I don't consider myself anything having to do with religion. I do consider myself a person of faith. And I'll give my reasoning. Okay. So this is totally real. I'm not making this up.
Okay.
So
there's no lying.
There's no lying on this podcast. So I believe. So I'll say this: the week that week where everything was bad, and we were in the hospital room with my mother. She was like plugged in with tubes and like breathing help. That night before she passed, I kid you not, I had a dream where I walk into her room. Her hotel room, not her hotel room, hospital room, and she's sitting upright. And she looks, for no other word to say, she looks absolutely angelic. And she turns to me, and she says to me, I'm going to go.
I have goosebumps.
Right, I'm not making this up. I'm going to go, but I'm going to be with you in some way. Like, I'm going to be looking after you.
Oh, my gosh. That is, okay. That is amazing on its own, but to add to that, so somebody that we know that I won't say her name for her own privacy, but who also lost her mother suddenly, had a dream like the week before, same thing. She walks into a hospital room and her mother was not in the hospital yet. She had like a brain tumor come on suddenly, but and her mother was sitting there in the hospital bed and said, I'm going to die. Yeah. Like same thing.
Yeah. And
oh my gosh.
And like she my mother looked amazing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not kidding, there was a shining bright behind her.
Yeah.
Like, this is not me. I'm not making this up. And like I'm woken up from that dream with my dad telling me that she passed.
Oh my gosh.
So when I think about my relationship with faith and I think about what's beyond, like that doesn't, like, I could close my eyes and it could be black. Mm-hmm. But I'm never going to know. Because that's just the way it is.
Right.
Like, it could be black. How am I going to know? But to have this thought that she's out there and she's looking after me, like, what a lovely thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
That's fine. We'll edit this out. Hi. I love that. Okay, so then we'll wrap up. What do you think? Like, what is your next priority for like your relationship with you? Like, what is the one thing you want to work on?
It's a really great question. Oh, that's a really good one, Casey.
Did I stump you?
I think it's to be more present with the people that I hold very close to me. I think it's to really become more giving to them and be able to bring that happiness that I've developed within myself to them and to ensure that I'm present for them and that I'm able to like, give myself fully. Because I'm at that place where I can do that now.
Yeah. That's an awesome answer.
Thanks.
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks so much.
All right. Well, that is it. That is our #1 most popular, most downloaded show of the podcast so far. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a rating and review for the show. That means a lot. Make sure you're following us on the socials at TheBetterYouPodcast on both Instagram and Facebook. And if you have feedback for me, you can always reach me at TheBetterYouPodcast@gmail.com. And I think that's it. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful week. Thanks for listening. Bye.